Hello, my name is Lindsay Davidson, and this is my choice book review project for Diverse Learners Intersession 2016 at Fort Hays State University. Okay, so the book that I chose for my book review was A Gift of Hope, Helping the Homeless by Danielle Steele. What made me choose this book is I knew I wanted to read a book about the homeless or people in extreme poverty. We are a military family and we move around a lot. And we just recently moved from the Washington, D.C. area, and we lived there for about 4 years. And the number of homeless people on the streets in that area is really just unbelievable. There's so many people without homes there. When you're walking around downtown, there's just people sleeping on the streets, and it's just so sad. And it's always made me wonder, I wonder why there isn't more, programs to help the homeless. So I knew that that's the topic that I wanted to read about when I found out we had to choose a nonfiction book about a diverse topic. So I chose this book. I actually just did a search at the library of homeless people who are homeless or living in poverty, and this book came up. And at first, I didn't think it was a nonfiction book because it's written by Danielle Steele. And while I haven't read any of her books, I know that she's a very well known fiction author. So I went and found the book and found that it actually is nonfiction, and she wrote about what she experienced in her own life. So, yes, Danielle Steele is famous for her fiction novels, obviously. She is a mother to 9 children. One of her children, she actually lost to suicide. He was a young adult, and he was suffering from some mental issues. He was bipolar, and they thought they had it under control. And he actually tried to kill himself a couple times, but he actually succeeded on the third time. After her son had committed suicide, she got divorced. It was just a really stressful time, and her husband just decided, they couldn't make it work. But what she really felt after her son died, while she still had her 8 children, she really felt like there was something missing from her life since he was gone, and she just had a yearning to do something more. So that's when she had come up with the idea of helping the homeless. She actually came up with this idea because she was in church one day and she knew that she needed some sort of direction, so she was praying. And after a while of praying, she heard God speak to her and say, "You need to go help the homeless." And when she heard that, she knew right away that was something that it was what she needed to do. Her son, who had passed away, he always had a very soft spot for the homeless. If he would see a homeless person, he would always try to buy them a meal or give them any money that he had. He was just never one to shy away from helping people out. So when she heard God tell her that, she knew that she wasn't hearing it wrong, that that's what she needed to do. So at the beginning of her mission, it was just her. She'd called up one of her assistants and asked, "Hey, do you want to help me? I'm going to go buy some things and I want to go drive around San Francisco," which is where she lives. And it was at the winter time when they started this. So there was a lot of people, homeless people, who were out on the streets and cold. So she asked her assistant if he wanted to come and help. And he was like, "Definitely." So it was just the two of them in her van. And before they had went out, they had went and bought a bunch of nice, good quality down jackets and warm sleeping bags. And they were just going to go out, drive around, and try to find people who wanted and needed, a jacket and a sleeping bag. So they did that. I think that first night, they probably had about 100 jackets and sleeping bags that they handed out. And they weren't even sure if they would ever do it again. She wasn't sure. She was still trying to figure out what her purpose was in helping the homeless and if this is how she needs to be helping them. So she actually her and her assistant went out a couple more times, And then they stopped for a little while, but she always felt that there was an emptiness, like she needed to be doing it. And again, she was praying about it, and God told her, get back out there. You know, those people need you. You need to be out there helping. So, from that, over the years, the group grew from 2 to 13. Um, and that is when the group Yo Angel was formed. How they got the name Yo Angel, they had, for safety purposes, they had recruited a couple off-duty police officers to join their group just as a precaution because, you know, they obviously wanted to help people, but they wanted to be safe as well. So a couple of the off-duty police officers suggested that before they come up on people, if there's a homeless person, you know, like laying down in a doorway or something, before you just walk up and startle them, you should yell out, yo, as you're walking up to them. Because there's times, you know, because people who are living on the streets, you know, they're just trying to stay alive. And if they think they're being threatened, or if you know, sneak up on them and they're startled, you know, they could, you know, defend themselves if they're not sure they're in a safe situation. So by yelling yo, they decided they were able to let the people know that they were coming. And the angel part came, somebody called one night, there was a gentleman who had received some of the supplies that they were giving out, and he said, you know, you're an angel. This band is an angel coming to help us. And so they decided they would call their group Yo Angel. When like they were helping between 200 and 300 people per night, and they did this for 11 years. They did it, or not per night, they did it one night a month because it took almost a whole month to reorder the supplies and get them all sorted and everything like that. So they did that for 11 years. So 200 to 300 people a night for once a month for 11 years. They probably helped about 40,000 people. And nobody knew who she was when she was out there. The homeless people did not. She wasn't like, hi, I'm Danielle Steele. So she didn't want that recognition. She didn't want people thinking she was doing this to write a book about it or anything like that. And she fully funded the program on her own. She knew that she could probably have gotten donations if she had come public with what she was doing, but she just felt like that was not what she wanted to be doing. One of the quotes that was in the book that really kind of stuck out to me was she said several times she felt like their work was like emptying the ocean with a thimble. Obviously, emptying the ocean with a thimble is you feel like you're getting nowhere. It's a lot of work, and you're not seeing a lot of results. When they were on the streets in San Francisco, while they were helping, 200 people a month, there was still thousands of people that they were not reaching. So she just felt like it was like emptying the ocean with a thimble. When I heard this, I really could compare it to being an educator. Teachers teach hundreds of kids a year, thousands of kids over their career, and they may not feel like they're making a difference in every single student they see. They may see it's just like one or two, but really, it's like they're emptying the ocean with a thimble, even though, there's maybe only one or two students that they really feel like they made a difference in their lives over the course of a year or a couple years. It's still making a difference. Even though it's small, it still makes a difference. So when I was reading this book, I thought about an article that I had read previously to reading this book. And I put the link on the end of my PowerPoint presentation if anybody wants to go back and read it, but it's called 25 Things Successful Educators Do Differently. And there was a couple things in this article that I feel like are like that I got from this book, but that can be applied to teaching as well. So the first thing was successful educators have clear objectives. Obviously, when Danielle and her group first went out, they weren't really sure what they were going to be doing, but after a while, they realized this is what we need to be doing. This is why we're here. This is what we're giving them. We're going to give out jackets and sleeping bags and high quality items that are going to last and make a difference in these people's lives. And as an educator, you really have to have clear objectives of what you're doing as well. The other thing, successful educators have a sense of purpose. I know Danielle and her group, they felt that there was a need, and that need was their purpose. The fact that these people needed what they had to give, that was enough to tell them that this is our purpose, this is why we're out here. And as teachers, sometimes the work is hard and mundane and repetitive, and sometimes students are bored, or you may not think you're reaching them, but you need to think about further down the road. You need to think about what you are doing, like what your purpose is as an educator. Number 3 from the article was successful educators are able to get to live without immediate feedback. Obviously in the book, there was many nights where they were sad and depressing nights because they were seeing how the dire conditions that these homeless people were in, and it wasn't always like exciting. It was sad and depressing, and if they were to have given up on those nights, they would not have been doing it for 11 years. They just couldn't have. And I feel like as an educator, like this article states, if you're the kind of person who needs the instant gratification, like you plan this lesson and you are like, oh, I know my students are really going to love this and they're going to be engaged and they're going to leave and I'm just going to see it in their faces. And if that's not the case, you're going to get burnt out as a teacher really quickly because you can't expect that, that positive feedback every time you do something. Okay, I'm going to skip down to number 9 on this list from the article. Successful educators know how to take risks. Obviously, in the book, what Danielle and her group were doing was very, very risky. They could have been hurt. They could have gotten in trouble by the law because there's certain laws. Sometimes cities don't want you helping the homeless. And as teachers, it's important to be able to take risks, just like Danielle and her team took risks. Because if you never take risks, then you're never going to fail. And it's important for students to see a teacher fail and not be perfect, so they know that it's okay for them to fail, because failure is part of the learning process. Okay, I'm going to skip to number 18. Successful educators give their students emotional support. Obviously, this is a big one to me personally. In the book that I read, obviously Danielle and her team, while they were giving material stuff that the homeless people needed to survive, it was also supporting them emotionally, because the homeless people felt like somebody cared about them, that they weren't forgotten about, that they weren't just thrown out like the trash, and that somebody cared. And Danielle nobody in the group ever asked about how they got there, why they're homeless, why aren't you trying to get a job. They didn't judge them. They were just there for them, and accepting them for who they were as people. And I feel as a teacher, that's one of my big goals personally, is I want my students, when I'm a teacher in the future, to feel like they are important, like they are individual, that they're not just student in the 3rd row who gets a C on every test. I think it's important to get to know, a little bit about your students' culture, their history, their home life, and then I feel like if they are ever in a situation where they need help, they'll feel comfortable asking you. Okay, well, that concludes my presentation. I hope you all go out and read this book. It's a really good read. It's well written. I'd really recommend it. And I've posted the reference links for the article as well as the book if you're interested in checking out that article. Thanks. Bye.